I'm going to call this meeting to order. This is the regular City Council meeting. It's 6:07 p.m. on Wednesday, December 16, 2020. May we please have a roll call?
Yes, Mayor. Councilmember Hensy?
Here.
Councilmember Hubbard is absent. Councilmember Mosca?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Cran?
Here.
And Mayor Blakespear?
Here.
Record will show that all members are present with the exception of Councilmember Hubbard.
Okay, thank you. I invite you to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we have no special presentations tonight. And now we'll go to oral communications.
Okay, we do have 5. The first speaker is Kelly McCormick. Kelly, you can start when you are ready and you will have 3 minutes.
Good evening, this is Kelly McCormick. I'm a public health educator with San Diego Alliance, and our mission is to prevent the use of tobacco, alcohol, and marijuana by youth. I would like to thank the Council for adopting the ban on flavored tobacco products, which will go into effect next month. The flavor ban is an important step in fighting the epidemic of teen vaping. I was invited to address the Encinitas Youth Commission earlier this month and shared an update on the state's flavored tobacco ban, which would have gone into effect in January as well, but is now on hold due to a $15 million ballot initiative funded by the tobacco industry. Big Tobacco is doing everything it can to stop the state law from going into effect, as billions of dollars in sales are at stake. In fact, a complaint has been filed with the State Attorney General's office over illegal and misleading tactics used by signature gatherers. Encinitas is among the cities where this activity was reported. There's a photo of one such instance in front of an Encinitas grocery store where the signature gatherer is holding a sign that says ban flavored tobacco, which is the opposite of what the ballot measure would actually do. Today, more than 30% of high school students report using tobacco, but they're not smoking traditional cigarettes. The vast majority are using e-cigarettes with flavored nicotine or marijuana. This puts them at a risk for a lifetime of nicotine and marijuana addiction and health problems. As a parent, it's my hope that other cities will adopt flavor bans as you have done and stand up to the predatory practices of big tobacco and big marijuana. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Katie Poponiak. Katie, you can start when ready and you will have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Greetings, council and staff. I am Katie Poponiak, a 40-year Encinitas resident. I've raised 3 kids here. In fact, my daughter was on the Youth Commission in 2004, involved in planning the community center. I praise you all for your efforts to take care of the business and operation of our Encinitas. You work well as a team. My superhero, even before we saw his Little League picture tonight, is Tony Krantz. And this is because Tony gave support against Measure H. I attribute Tony's wisdom to the fact that he has raised children to adulthood here in Encinitas, and he's seen the bumps in the road. The marijuana industry is coming to town to make a buck on us. We are all responsible to make sure that youth are not sucked down that rabbit hole. Thank you, Tony, for listening and having the common sense to know that Measure H will not be a good thing for Encinitas. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Daniel Mangus. Daniel, you can start when ready and you do have 3 minutes.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. Hi, I'm Daniel Mangus. I'm a California born and raised resident here in Encinitas since '74. I own 2 homes here in Encinitas. Love the community, been retired for about 4 years now, so I'm looking to get involved in other projects, but I applaud the committee and the engineers and the councils for putting all the work that you've done so far. I mean, I see a lot of projects going on now. I was sort of resistant to it, I have to say, because you want to keep everything the same, but I got to tell you that in seeing all these projects being done and being worked on and participating within the projects, they're really great. I'm really a strong supporter of the sidewalk and the bike path on Santa Fe Drive near our high school all the way to El Camino Real, and I look forward to its completion. I applaud the city and what they did on the Highway 1 and the walking paths and the bike lanes. I know there's been controversy over those, but I got to tell you, I go down there every day. I use them, I walk them, I bike them. I surf down there every day. I see what's going on there. And I take that little stretch between the Kook and Solana Beach to hold heart. I mean, I'm down there and I love it. The project needs to be completed though, and especially at the south end. And I know you've talked about this, but the border that's on Solana Beach now, Harbaugh Trails has been completed. There's a lot of people that are walking those trails. They're going underneath the tracks and walking over in our beautiful lagoon project and those 2 bridges. I just saw 2 ospreys the other day. It was awesome. But that whole project is really coming to life. And when you come back over, you have to cross right there, and you have to cross that traffic coming across into Seaside parking lot. Now, I know you've probably driven by it. If you haven't taken the time to walk it, you need to walk it. It's gorgeous. But I'm trying to get the state to build a stairway there that we've needed a long time in that southeast corner of the Seaside parking lot. They're not returning my calls, but I talked to a lot of state people there. Supposedly it's on the agenda and it's not getting done. Our part in Encinitas is we need to put a crosswalk in there. And I think we can do it with one of our flashing crosswalks. We've already slowed the traffic down to 35 miles an hour now. And so I know the city limit coming out of Solana is 40. And it'd probably be coexisting to do it for both, but I think it might be harder. And if we just do it, and I know there's already been talk and budget to put aside to get this crosswalk done, but it's sort of like the last little part we did right at Cardiff parking lot to make a walking path over to the bridge there. We need to do it on the south end now and put this in so people can actually park, the only parking at Seaside parking lot, get in the crosswalk, go over to Harbaugh Trails, and really participate in that beautiful trail over there. I did talk to our engineer of traffic, Abram Brandigan, and he is supportive with it. We know that there's no pedestrians on the east side of 101 there with all the signage pushing everybody to the west side. I know that there's been talk about a traffic light being done at Seaside parking lot, but that's too expensive and we should not do that. And I just think, is that my time limit?
Yes, it is.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
That's
well,
okay.
I hope I'll keep talking to the traffic engineer, and I hope you guys will continue to get this done. It's something that we really need for safety. Thank you.
Next speaker is Bertha Rodriguez. Bertha, you can start when you are ready.
I'm speaking on item 10A.
Oh, you're speaking on item 10A? Okay, I will move you to there. Thank you. And then finally, Elena Thompson. Elena, were you speaking during oral communications?
Yes, hi. Thank you.
Okay, you can start when ready.
Hello, Council and Mayor. My name is Elena Thompson, and I'm a 35-year resident of Leucadia, passionate about biking and walking where I live and travel, but worried about my safety. I received the City of Encinitas update today, notifying the community of the ability to sign up for the Leucadia streetscape updates. And I think that's an excellent plan. I'm excited to see Encinitas' first complete street start construction here soon with the promise of a safer Highway 101 in Leucadia for all user types, people in cars, bikes, people on foot, skateboarders, and ADA. I've been a big supporter of seeing this highly dangerous, outmoded former Highway 101 that was replaced by the I-5 back in 1960 revert back to a local road, and I cannot wait to see the old and rusted guardrails removed, symbolic of another era of high-speed travel on the 101. At this time, I would urge this council to strongly consider an interim bike lane on the 101 through Leucadia southbound, La Costa to Encinitas Boulevard to safeguard the countless bicyclists and pedestrians out in full force on the 101 and now more than ever due to COVID. It's a joy to see, but equally frightening to think that people are biking on the 101 in the travel lane with cars and trucks, this site of already numerous cycling collisions and fatalities. We cannot afford to wait any longer until the streetscape is completed to simply stripe in a bike lane, which, as you know, is years away. And yet the need to protect public safety and cyclists is urgent. On that note, and with your climate emergency declaration later tonight, all the more reason for the council to activate around the strategic priority of mobility and mode shift in Encinitas, at least north and southbound and east and west on major connector routes and near schools. This can be achieved to a large degree with paint and striping, the narrowing of travel lanes, and encouraging more people to actually feel safe on the road. Therefore, more people to choose a bike over a car for short and fun trips. Public safety and public mobility infrastructure is critical here and now, and growing in importance as developers in Encinitas embark on massive bonus density building development in our town, especially near my home, near the 101 and La Costa Avenue. With this, due to the new and unsavory state mandated housing law and bonus density. Please protect the public, prioritize fulfilling on past strategic imperatives as you go forward in your new term. You have our full support. And please also remember our dear friend Jennings Worley, the cyclist who was killed in the bike lane this past November 28th. Let's hope this never happens again to a cyclist or a pedestrian in our town. Thank you.
Thank you, and that does conclude oral communications.
I would like to ask for some information about that crossing that was discussed on the south end of town, and specifically whether we've engaged the city of Solana Beach in conversations about cooperating to put together a crosswalk there, because I was riding my bike just the other day and people were dashing across there, and I didn't ask Dan to show up tonight and talk about it, but it hit exactly on what my biggest concern is now that we've got that awesome facility in that stretch of Highway 101. So maybe the city manager can ask Abe to weigh in on what might be possible, and then at some point engage the city of Solana Beach about getting that done.
Okay, great. Thank you. I appreciate that comment, and I agree with that. I would like to have an update on that as well. Thank you to the public who came to speak tonight at public comment. Now we will go to our report from closed session.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor, Council, and members of the public. The council met in closed session this evening on all the noticed items. We want to report out that Councilmember Hubbard was absent for closed session. On the first item, conference with legal counsel, existing litigation on Davis versus City of Encinitas. Councilmember Hinsey was recused due to a close relationship with the plaintiffs. The council discussed the status of this matter with special counsel, and there is no reportable action. Item 2, conference with legal counsel, existing litigation, Walker versus City of Encinitas. Councilmember Hinsey recused herself as having a close relationship with the plaintiff, and City Council discussed this matter and the status of it with special counsel. There's no reportable action. Item number 3, conference with legal counsel, existing litigation, Baker Electric versus City of Encinitas. The City Council discussed the status of this matter with legal counsel, and there was no reportable action. Closed session items, item 4, conference with legal counsel on significant exposure to the litigation on 2 matters. The City Council discussed with their legal counsel exposure on these 2 items, and there are no reportable actions on either of those 2 matters. And that concludes my report out from closed session.
Thank you very much. Do we have any changes to the agenda?
Yes, Mayor, we do. Item 8F on the consent calendar has been removed from the agenda and will not be considered this evening. And then moving to the consent calendar, items 8E, 8J, and 8K have been removed by members of the public.
Okay. I would entertain a motion on the balance.
I'll move the remainder of the consent calendar.
I'll second that.
Start voting just one moment. Councilmember Hensy?
Yes.
Councilmember Hubbard is absent. Councilmember Mosca?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Krantz?
Yes.
Mayor Blakespear?
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously with Councilmember Hubbard absent. We can now move to item 8E, and we do have one speaker on that item.
Okay, let's go ahead and hear the speaker.
Okay, our speaker on item 8E is Robert Crocker. Robert, you can start when you're ready, and you have 3 minutes.
Greg, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right, thank you very much. Well, good evening, everybody, Mayor Blakespear and City Council members, and to all the attendees. I'd like to point out several reasons why this ordinance should be revoked and then reconsidered in a more advantageous way for the city of Encinitas and its citizens, and most importantly, the group home operators. One, the liability that the city is exposing itself to here is tremendous. On November 18th, the city stated that there is no risk for the approval of this ordinance due to the fact that the city can always withdraw or rescind this ordinance if the city of Costa Mesa temporary rulings gets overturned. It's extremely clear that the Costa Mesa rulings are temporary and do not serve as precedents yet. Why would the city of Encinitas approve this ordinance while knowing that this specific issue will demand very long litigations that last several years and cost millions of dollars? Costa Mesa alone has spent over $7 million litigating this ordinance. Two, on November 18th, the city of Encinitas stated that they're aware of the need for these group homes and the populations that they serve. Rather than adopting this Costa Mesa ordinance that would clearly push operators out of the city, limit the amount of group home beds available in the community, and revoke the privacy of these disabled people, why doesn't the city consider sitting down with these operators to create a cohesive ordinance that works for all parties involved? The approved ordinance 2020-16 will do more harm than good for everyone. Encinitas has the opportunity to lead and create thorough regulations that stand firm. Why follow Costa Mesa into endless litigation? After all, what type of work does the city of Encinitas do to help these people here that suffer from mental health, drug addiction, and alcoholism? The private sector here does the heavy lifting for the city, and we are completely being denied any type of input when it comes to what type of ordinance would be appropriate. Three, the operators in this field that currently operate here in Encinitas and the surrounding cities unanimously disagree with this ordinance. It is very clear that if the city decides to pass this ordinance, that it will automatically be diving headfirst into a very long legal battle. This ordinance violates more than the American Disabilities Act, the federal fair housing laws. It violates all sorts of discriminatory laws that our country has fought so hard to reverse. The ordinance will oppress the people suffering from mental health and substance abuse in this city, furthermore, segregating them away from this city. Four, the city of Encinitas continues to give conditional use permits for bars, restaurants, distributors to sell alcohol, and additionally now allows for the sale, usage, and distribution of marijuana. This ordinance would dramatically limit and restrict the available resources to help these people that are directly addicted and affected by alcohol and marijuana. How does the city justify this decision to continuously increase the availability of drugs and alcohol, but yet limit the availability and resources to combat these very substances that have and continue to destroy so many lives? The city of Encinitas has the obligation to serve its community in a fiduciary way. The time and effort it would take to construct an ordinance with the collaboration of the community and its operators would be far less exhaustive than passing this ordinance as it is today. Please consider, and thank you guys for your time. I appreciate it.
That concludes speakers on this item.
Okay, I would entertain a motion or any comments from council.
Move approval.
I'll second.
And just to be clear, this is for the adoption of ordinance 2020-16 and adoption of resolution 2020-105.
Yes.
Councilmember Hensy?
Yes.
Councilmember Hubbard is absent. Councilmember Mosca?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Krantz? Deputy Mayor Krantz?
Looks like we lost him.
Let's see, Mayor Blakespear.
Yes.
Should I just mark him as absent on this vote, or should we wait until he jumps back on?
You know, he actually had his hand up too.
Why don't we just wait and
Okay,
see?
yeah, we'll wait a minute, see if he jumps right back on.
Should we retake the vote when he comes back on and then move to the next item for now?
Well, do you want him to be involved in the next item as well?
Well,
The next item is item 8J.
he should be
which
involved in
is-
everything. He's an elected, but he's not here at the moment. So,
There he
here
is.
he is.
oh, good. Okay. So Tony, or Deputy Mayor Kranz, we think maybe you had your hand up on the last item we were just discussing.
And I was just going to thank the gentleman for his comments, but this ordinance is long overdue. We've been dealing with this for quite some time, and I'm going to move approval.
Well, you've already been beat to it by another council person and a second. So,
Okay.
but you'll
Okay,
have the
so-
opportunity to vote.
Okay, very good.
Okay, let's
And
take,
so-
yeah.
So, Councilmember Hensy was a yes. Councilmember Hubbard is absent. Councilmember Mosca was a yes. Deputy Mayor Kranz
Yes.
and Mayor Blakespear was a yes. So motion carries unanimously with Councilmember Hubbard absent. We now move to item 8J, and we have one public speaker on that item. Do you want to hear from the public speaker?
Yes, please.
Okay, David Meyer. David, you can start when you're ready, and you do have 3 minutes. David, you need to unmute your microphone.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
There you go.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll start over. First time doing this. Sorry about that, guys. Good evening, Mayor and council members. Hope everyone is safe and staying well during these challenging times. I'm David Meyer, and with DCM Properties. As you're aware, our firm specializes in the use of state density bonus law throughout California, is an expert on this subject, and has been involved in amendments to this law since 2001 now. I'm truly saddened and distressed that Encinitas, which appeared to have turned a corner with the certification of its housing element, is proceeding with the proposed amendments to its density bonus implementing ordinance. This is deja vu all over again, unfortunately. We have been here before and before with multiple lawsuits and legislative fixes just for Encinitas, who just can't seem to follow this law, has and is actively again working to bend, twist, contort, and subvert the law. On the record, we have public officials openly expressing their disdain for this law and how they intend to defy and break the law, even going against the advice of the city's own special counsel on housing matters. This is shameful and a black mark on our wonderful city, showing on full display our NIMBY stripes. At a time when so many are suffering even more than in the past for the lack of housing options, Encinitas is blindly oblivious and insensitive to this need. When density bonus is while it's not the only tool to provide housing in our city, there is a reason it is more widely used here than in other cities. Simply, it is because Encinitas has so many obstacles to development at other than painfully low densities that density bonus law is one of the only means by which projects can develop densities that provide desperately needed housing. With the median price of homes in Encinitas now in excess of $1.2 million, no one other than those with exceptional means can afford to live here. In the end, should you decide to move forward with these amendments, I foresee future litigation, admonishments from the likes of HCD, the Attorney General, and very likely additional amendments to state legislation to rectify your actions. As to the details in the subject amendments, 3 minutes does not allow for a discussion of these issues. Therefore, I again entered my letter of December 9th for the record, as it lays out in detail the serious flaws in the subject ordinance. Thank you for your time, and hopefully I'll cancel my own alarm and hopefully seriously consider my comments and my letter before proceeding. Thank you very much and happy holidays to everyone. Be safe.
That does conclude speakers. Mayor Blakespear on this item.
Okay, thank you. Any council comments? I will entertain a motion.
I'll move staff's recommendation on this item.
Second.
Councilmember Hensy.
Yes.
Councilmember Hubbard is absent. Councilmember Mosca.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Kranz.
Yes.
And Mayor Blakespear.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously with Councilmember Hubbard absent. And then we'll move to the final consent calendar item that was pulled as item 8K. And we do have 2 speakers on that item. First speaker is Diana Nunes. Diana, you can start when ready.
Dear Council and Mayor Blakespear, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Diana Nunes, and I'm a member of Now Leucadia. Now Leucadia is an advocacy group started in January of this year with the primary goal of informing and engaging our local neighborhood of Northwest Leucadia around issues such as a safe rail crossing in our area. Now Leucadia's initial mobilization efforts were to have local citizens attend the Cross Connect workshop held at the beginning of this year. The orchestrated voices of our community at this workshop have been heard, as demonstrated in the contents of the Cross Connect implementation plan that you have been asked to adopt this evening. First, I would like to acknowledge and thank Jeffrey Plegeman from Planning for his work on this project, and foremost for his transparency and willingness to interact with the members of this community regarding this important analysis. I would like to also acknowledge the leadership of this council for addressing the need for a safe rail crossing in Northwest Leucadia. The Cross Connect analysis identified the Sanford, Jupiter, and Grandview Hillcrest locations as the highest prioritized locations for a rail crossing. We urge the council to continue this momentum and execute in January the RFP for the preliminary planning, engineering, and design of a rail crossing at these locations. Parallel to this, we also ask the council to instruct staff to further investigate future possible funding sources, such as those identified in this report, and their applicable timelines or deadlines. Time is of essence and critical, not only in preparation for funding application for money, for the funding applications for monies that may become available, but also for the preparation and coordination with additional infrastructure projects needed to address the onslaught of development that is imminent in this corridor. Members of Now Leucadia appreciate the complexity of the current demands of the Northwest Leucadia corridor and are eager to work collaboratively with this council and the city staff to contribute to the efforts of achieving safe mobility options. We look forward to the realization of the projects as prioritized within the Cross Connect plan. Thank you for your time and your sincere efforts to move these much needed foundational developments forward.
Thank you. Next speaker is Elena Thompson. Elena, you can start when ready, and you have 3 minutes. Oh, I don't see her.
I don't think Elena's present.
Yeah, I don't see Elena. So that looks like that concludes public speakers on this item.
Okay, Council Member Kranz has his hand up.
Yes, thank you. I wanted to also commend the staff for all of their efforts that went into this. I know that it was a follow-up project from the significant efforts that went into the Coastal Mobility and Livability Working Group and looking at ways to make our rail corridor a little more resident friendly. And so for all of the efforts that have gone into that, I sincerely appreciate, including members of the public, Diana Nunez, and many members of the Now Leucadia group who have organized very effectively and are advocating strongly for more infrastructure improvements on the north end of town. And the construction that started at El Portal is great to see, but I think it's important that we all recognize that there's still a lot of work to do. And I know that there are efforts in the engineering department to explore the feasibility of undercrossings, including what I think are euphemistically referred to as mouse holes versus the bridge structure that we're getting at El Portal, and that there was going to be some further analysis to see what the feasibility of that was. And so I would ask that if at all possible, we get an update on that tonight to see where that stands and when it is expected that we will have the agenda item that either awards a contract to a consulting firm or more information about what's happening in the engineering department.
Okay, is staff prepared to provide that information? Like, were you thinking of it at this very minute today, or?
Well, it would be great to know. Yes, it's in the works, and we expect it to be on an agenda in a month, 2 months, 6 months, whatever the schedule for that may be. I know it's my recollection that there was going to be an RFP put together and let to see who what the bids might be. But if there can be an update to that, at what point that process is.
I apologize, Mayor Pro Tem Kranz. I do not have a date for that, but we can certainly get something back to the council and let you know a status on that.
I mean, I understood that the RFP was going out in January for an analysis of the site, you know, the engineering that would be required, and I think I'm almost positive that that's what is happening. Is there, yeah, maybe Ed Wimmer or is Lillian or somebody could answer from that department.
You're correct, Madam Mayor. The deadline is the end of January, and we had promised everyone a screenshot of the RFP on Planet Bids. So staff is on track for that. Our director has got that. It's kind of like the #1 item. We get asked to brief on that pretty much every week. So we will not miss that milestone.
Great. Okay, thank you. Councilmember Mosca.
Yeah, so I'm prepared to move the recommended action whenever it's appropriate. I mean, this is a really exciting time for us and an important moment. We've been talking about safe crossings. Well, at least in terms of the planning, we've been looking at it since the Coastal Mobility Livability Work Group. And so we now finally have a prioritization, I meant to say, of crossings that make sense and that will improve the safety for kind of east-west travel, especially as we improve this corridor. So it's such an important plan, and now it's time to put it in place and try to find the resources necessary to develop all of these safe crossings. And so I proudly move the recommended action.
Second.
You ready to vote?
Yes.
Okay, Councilmember Hensy?
Yes.
Councilmember Hubbard is absent. Councilmember Mosca?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Kranz?
Yes.
And Mayor Blakespear?
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously with Councilmember Hubbard absent. That concludes the consent calendar. We now move to action items. The first item is item 10A.
Okay, great. Let's go to staff for that item.
So good evening and thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm certainly available to answer any questions, but in deference to our climate planning subject matter expert, I'm going to turn it over to Crystal Nahara for a brief introduction and overview on this item.
Thank you, Eric. So I'll be, excuse me, I don't have any PowerPoint slides tonight, but I'll be just giving a brief introduction and then there's a short video. So the item 10A before you tonight is a recommendation from the city's Environmental Commission to approve a climate emergency declaration. This concept was introduced to the commission through a commissioner initiated item prepared by Commissioner Jim Wong. Commissioner Wong is here tonight to answer any questions following staff's brief introduction. If you recall, on November 18th last month, City Council approved an update to the city's climate action plan. This reaffirmed the city's clear and ongoing commitment to local actions in fighting the global climate crisis. The climate emergency declaration gives the city an opportunity to act in solidarity with over 1,400 local governments in 28 countries in acknowledging the severity of this global crisis and the urgency to act. A climate emergency tonight, staff is recommending approval of Resolution 2020-90, effectively pledging strong action, elevating urgency and awareness, and further articulating the city's commitment to combat the global climate crisis. It should be noted that Resolution 2020-90 does not directly obligate any additional financial or time commitments from the city. Now I'd like to ask IT staff if you could cue that short video that I mentioned. And I'll just say that the video that you'll be seeing was produced by Commissioner Wong, and it was produced with the help of several other Encinitas residents. Sounds like we're not hearing the sound of the video.
I'm gonna try it.
Still not. Well, I could try it on my end, or we could listen to it silently. It's up to you, Council. What do you like to do?
I think you should try to do it if you can.
Okay.
I mean,
The pictures are also self-explanatory.
They are pretty self-explanatory.
and yeah, it'd be nice to hear it though.
If Kieran, if you wouldn't mind maybe giving me control of the screen share. Oh, there it is. Actually, I think I know what we could do, Kieran. If you want to restart it, and I can just play the audio through mine. How does that sound? Okay, hold on. Let's orchestrate this just a second. Okay, on your mark, get set, go.
We've known about greenhouse gases for centuries. We were told about the threats to our lifestyle. We've watched our carbon concentrations increase relentlessly.
Considering the magnitude of the threat, we've done next to nothing.
Now we are battling the disasters that we predicted long ago.
These conditions are not temporary.
They may last for millennia.
The science is unequivocal.
We'll soon push the climate past the point where we can recover.
We have no undue battle.
There is no time left for complacency. We have a climate emergency.
Of course, we can't fix this problem alone.
But we can step up to the plate and do our part.
And we can address environmental, generational, and social justice issues while making the world a better and healthier place for all.
We can inspire other people to do the same. Let's show them what all of us can and should do. Together, we can do this. Let's start now. Please approve this climate emergency declaration. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Council. That concludes my presentation, and staff and Commissioner Wong are all available to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the effort of creating that video. I'm glad we got it to work. Do we have about 10 speakers? Is that what you said, City Clerk?
Yeah, we have 8. The first speaker is Rita Clement. Rita, you can start when ready, and you do have 3 minutes.
Honorable Mayor, City Council members, and City staff. My name is Rita Clement. I am a member of San Diego 350, a climate action organization which is a member of the Green New Deal Alliance. I am speaking in support of item 10A and your hard work to create the Encinitas Climate Emergency Declaration. We thank you for working to increase concern about the severity of the climate crisis. We thank you for taking this prompt and positive action. We ask that you understand that we need a just transition and a climate emergency mobilization to reverse global warming. We need to create high quality, well-paying jobs with comprehensive benefits. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Harold Standifer. Harold, I do not see Harold. So the next speaker is Linda Daniels. Linda, you can start when ready, and you do have 3 minutes.
Hi, I'm Linda Daniels. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Honorable Mayor, City Council members, as a member of the Sierra Club MyGen and a member of the newly formed San Diego Building Electrification Coalition, I want to say that a climate emergency must be declared so we can reach our goals of eliminating greenhouse gas emissions. Sea levels are rising, California fires are burning, and temperatures are rising. We must get very serious about curtailing our GHG emissions. Join the 40+ cities in California that have already approved this. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Linda. Our next speaker is David Robertson. David, you can start when ready. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening. My name is David Robertson, and I'm a volunteer with the San Diego Green New Deal Alliance. Please, I ask that you unanimously approve the climate emergency resolution. We need to take advantage of every opportunity to inform the public about how dire our situation is, and declaring an emergency is just one more way of doing that. While not binding, an emergency resolution will help convince more people about the seriousness of this crisis. We need as many people as possible on board in order to pass policies and implement programs that will help to mitigate some of the worst impacts of climate change. Complex climate models show us that limiting our temperature rise to 1.5 degrees Celsius may not be possible, may be possible, but only with widespread, immediate, and a determined effort. So we need all hands on deck to save the planet. And if that doesn't warrant an emergency declaration, I don't know what does. And then the words of Sir David Attenborough, what we do now and in the next few years will profoundly affect the next few thousand years. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker is Carl Aldinger. You have 3 minutes. You can start when ready.
Hello, I'm Carl Aldinger speaking on behalf of the Sierra Club San Diego in support of the declaration. We need bold, unprecedented action to address climate crisis, and this climate emergency resolution is a critical step in framing Encinitas' future actions and policies. No act we take in this fight for our future will be too much. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Laura Minato. Laura, you can start when ready.
Hi, I'm Laura. I hope you can hear me.
Yes,
I'm Laura Minato, and I'm a volunteer with the San Diego Green New Deal Alliance and the San Diego chapter of the Climate Reality Project. And I urge the council to support the Climate Emergency Declaration. The city needs to join over 1,850 governments, 950 million people, and 18 national governments, including the European Union, that have all declared a climate emergency, according to the Climate Mobilization Organization. By declaring a climate emergency, the city can help take action to organize people and resources towards addressing our large climate problems, which include air pollution and its devastating COVID-19 effects that are happening in Encinitas' own backyard. By declaring a climate emergency, Encinitas takes positive action and leads the way as an inspiration for all. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Bertha Rodriguez. Bertha, you can start when you're ready.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Bertha Rodriguez, calling on behalf of Climate Action Campaign and the San Diego Green New Deal Alliance, a coalition of 50 local organizations and small businesses committed to ensuring the San Diego region achieves a zero carbon economy by 2035 in a way that creates good union jobs and more equitable communities. Today, we urge you to approve Item 10A, the Climate Emergency Resolution, an important document to acknowledge the gravity of the climate crisis and how critical full community-wide participation will be to achieve a zero carbon future. We want to emphasize the resolution highlights the need for active consultation, participation, and benefit of workers and disadvantaged communities. We especially want to highlight the need to ensure a just transition for workers by creating good paying union jobs in the green economy. We applaud Commissioner Wong for his hard work on this resolution, as well as Encinitas for his steadfast dedication for leading the region on climate action. Thank you.
Final speaker is Sally Prendergast. Sally, you can start when ready. You have 3 minutes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Greetings, everyone. Mayor Blakespear, City Council members. It's great to be here tonight for this opportunity to speak on behalf of yet another bold resolution and climate step that our city can take. And I want to encourage you to support the passing of the climate emergency resolution. Please support this important step in dealing with the climate disaster facing our city, county, country, and even the planet. Declaration of a crisis will focus attention on the calamitous impacts of climate change and inform critical future decisions and policy made by the city of Encinitas. It will show our neighboring communities that what we do locally does truly matter and that we're committed to working towards a brighter future for our environment and the climate. Let's join San Diego, Del Mar, and Solana Beach in passing a climate emergency resolution. Just a few quick things to consider. You know, recently we've watched incredible climate disasters unfold, including the fires, the record-breaking hurricane season, the warming of the oceans, ongoing drought. And the cost of these events in the US has been in the billions and is increasing every year. This is only going to get worse. Climate change is driving species extinction rates that may lead to the extinction of 37% of all plants and animals by 2050. Even if we stopped emitting greenhouse gases today, we've already committed ourselves to an additional unacceptable level of temperature rise. And for decades, we've known that unmitigated greenhouse gas emissions is an existential threat to mankind and life as we know it. Yet in spite of that knowledge, the world has taken insufficient, meaningful action and our emissions are increasing. Declaring a commitment to the climate will encourage us all to do a better job and to help serve as a reminder that the issues facing our climate will not go away unless we all commit to meaningful change. The Encinitas City Council has been a strong environmental leader in the county, making the passage of this resolution critical. Declaring a climate emergency will help guide the city on local issues to improve our climate and send a strong message to the other cities that the time for bold action is now. And I just wanted to mention that in addition to being a Encinitas resident, I'm also speaking on behalf of the Sierra Club North County Coaster Group. Thank you.
Thank you. And that does conclude speakers.
Thank you. I would like to call on our esteemed commissioner, Jim Wong, who is here. I see him. And he unfortunately is having to leave the Environmental Commission because of term limits, but he has been amazingly effective at bringing things forward for our consideration and really moving the ball for us when it comes to our environmental commitments. And so I'd like to just give you the opportunity to say a few words, Jim.
Thank you for that flattering comment, Mayor Blakespear. I'm not sure what to say, but except to thank this council and staff for being proactive on these environmental actions and being a leader and showing other cities what they can do. So thank you, council and mayor and staff.
Well, thank you, Jim. Thank you for bringing this forward to the Environmental Commission and then joining us here on this meeting tonight. I'm really happy to support this. It's clearly something that is urgent, and declaring a climate emergency, it really recognizes the dire threat and it demands our action. And I think when we look at what it is this council is doing and this city is doing, we are committed on all fronts to doing what we can to cool the planet. And that comes from our transportation decisions, our energy decisions, our waste decisions, our water use and reuse decisions. And there are a number of small decisions that are made throughout the city all the time that help us achieve those goals. But we really need to be stating it in these very broad terms because it does then demand action. And what we want to see from all cities is action. So thank you to the speakers who came tonight and to our environmental commissioners and to all the residents who care about this, because it's always heartening when we have people who show up to speak about the things that we all believe deeply and we know that our residents do as well. So I'll call on my council colleague, Councilmember Mosca.
Yeah, the mayor already beat me to it in terms of thanking some folks. I do think that, you know, when Jim talks about the council kind of being proactive and progressive on this issue and really being bold, it's because we have folks like yourself on the Environmental Commission and a lot of the partners that are communicating with us tonight. You guys are laying the foundation in the community to allow us to make these type of changes that are completely necessary. So thank you for everything that you guys are doing. You make our job that much easier because it's quite clear what we ought to be doing. You know, and especially on this matter, you know, when I reflect upon, you know, the question before us, I think, you know, how is it possible that we've not done this before? You know, it really is, you know, how could you address a problem without saying what that problem is? You know, this is nothing less than a planetary emergency. We have to call it what it is, and that's what we're doing tonight. We're calling this a climate emergency. And I think it's important to name that and to say what it is, and then act appropriately. And so I thank you guys for the Environmental Commission for bringing this forward, because it's clear that it's a climate emergency, that we're living in a moment where we're quickly approaching, you know, devastating effects from climate change. And we need to do much more as a nation and as a planet to address these crises. And right here in California, I mean, we don't have to look any further than our own backyard and see the effects of climate change and how they're just going to get worse and worse with wildfires, just expanding the wildfire season and floods throughout the state. And so it's important that we're doing this. And I support this item, and I'll move it at the appropriate time. And not only do I support this item because again, it's just calling it what it is, but I also support making sure that we're doing everything we can to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, and that we're doing everything we can to lessen, mitigate the effects of climate change on our residents, on the residents of San Diego County, on our state, and globally. We will work globally to make sure we're doing our part to lessen the impacts of climate change. So thank you, and I'd like to move this recommended action.
Okay, great. We have a motion, and now we'll go call on Councilmember Krantz.
Well, I would second Councilmember Mosca's motion. And, you know, in reflecting on this particular item, I've enjoyed the opportunity to spend the last couple of weeks with my granddaughter, who's been here from Idaho Falls. And then I have my other granddaughter who is living in Oceanside and spends a lot of time here at our house. And frankly, a lot of what I do on the city council is with a mind to the next generations and the importance of the work that we're doing to leave a better planet for them. And for me, you know, I have always focused on doing the right thing environmentally as a council member. And I think that as we have not seen enough progress globally on this particular issue, it is time for more local governments to speak out and declare the emergency, as Joe talked about. So I appreciate the work of Commissioner Wong. He has brought several things that are very important to the fore. I also appreciate the fact that this was an iterative process at the Environmental Commission, that there were some feedback that he received and there were some modifications to it. And so, you know, to me, we've got a significant number of community members who support environmental measures that we've taken. And while there are others who think that this is not necessary, I would say for those in between who we can get their attention by making this declaration, I hope that there are many of those folks out there so that we can get them kind of with the program and to recognize how important this is. So again, thanks. I do consider it to be an important step.
Okay, thank you. Let's go ahead and vote.
Okay, Councilmember Hensy?
Yes.
Councilmember Hubbard is absent. Councilmember Mosca?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Krantz?
Yes.
And Mayor Blakespear?
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously with Councilmember Hubbard absent. That takes us to item, our informational item, item 11A.
Okay, good. We'll go to staff for that.
Hi, I'll go ahead and share my screen. Can everybody see that?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So I'll go ahead and start. Good evening. My name is Julie Ballesteros. I am an associate engineer with the engineering CIP team. At this time, I'd like to acknowledge the work of our consultant, NCE, who was hired to perform the condition assessments and the survey of the city's entire pavement network, and they are the author of this presentation. Is it changing slides?
No.
Why is this not working? Okay. Oops. Okay. All right. I think I've got it now. All right. So what is a pavement management program? So a pavement management program is a planning for maintenance and rehabilitation of our pavement network with the goal of maximizing the value and life in a cost-effective manner. So the city utilizes a pavement management software towards this purpose. And the pavement management program answers four main questions. What is in the inventory of our pavement network? What conditions are our roads in? What repairs are needed and when? And what funding is needed to maintain or improve the streets in a cost-effective way? So the city currently maintains over 167 centerline miles of roads and over 33 million square feet of pavement surface. This table displays a weighted average pavement condition index, that's the column to the far right, for each of the different classifications of streets here in the city. Arterial streets, such as El Camino Real or Coast Highway 101, along with our collector streets, such as Quail Gardens Drive or Saxony Road, share the same weighted PCI or pavement condition index of 71, while the residential roads in the city have an average PCI of 76, sorry. When combined, the overall city pavement condition stands at 74. In all, the asset value of the city's street network is estimated at approximately $428 million. So let me talk about how the pavement condition is measured. A street's pavement condition is classified into 4 main condition categories, which make up the pavement condition index. This index was developed by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and is now a widely used standard in the United States and internationally. The photo on the upper right, as you can see, is considered a very good street, and that represents what the city's PCI is. The photo on the far bottom right is a street that's in what would be considered a very poor condition.
That's High Meadows in the top. That's my district. I want to point that out.
So I've got a few more streets here that I'd like to review that provide examples of the different types of PCI. So you can see starting in the top left corner, you've got a PCI of 98, which would be considered, again, very good condition. You've got on the top right corner, a PCI of 74, which again stays in the very good condition. You move down to the lower left, you've got a street with a PCI of 48 that moves into the poor condition. And then on the far bottom right, you've got a street with a PCI of 11, and that is very, very poor.
How do we have such low PCI on the downtown area? Because what we see in this picture is what I see. I know that we've done some from Encinitas up to D Street. We've just recently done, but before that it was horrible. And then even as you go further south, it looks like this picture in the bottom right hand corner, and it really is horrible. And I'm just wondering, have we just not done it in a while? Have we hired a contractor that put down really bad asphalt? And it's not only PCH, but it's also the side streets that look the same. And then going right up to, it's interesting that you highlight these two streets, and then going right up to Vulcan in downtown, it's the same thing. You have like potholes right here. It's some of the worst streets I've seen.
So the streets age differently depending on the traffic use. And the bottom right, the South Coast Highway 101, that is considered an arterial. So you've got much more traffic loads, high volumes. You've got truck traffic, especially on this road. And those contribute to the wear and tear and the aging of the roads. So it's a normal process, and they just get added on to our list of repair needs.
Right. I guess I would just say that in these downtown areas where we have a lot of street festivals and where there's a lot of guests that come to our city, and it's sometimes the first time that folks really experience Encinitas, that if this is going to wear down faster than some of the other areas because of the nature of the volume of traffic, I think that these should be on a higher, they should be getting paved more often than others, especially since these are areas where visitors come in quite a bit, and we have street festivals and people are literally walking in the street and they're kicking the pebbles and the asphalt and walking in those holes. But
I totally agree with you, Councilmember Mosca, and I hope that we can talk about these things at the end. I think it would be good maybe if we go through the whole presentation, because otherwise we can go at a really slow pace. And I think we need to kind of get through the whole thing and then see where we have any comments we want to make at the end.
Well, so I will go ahead.
Yeah, Julie,
I'd like to go ahead and add that the Coast Highway 101, which is shown here, that segment is actually on the schedule to be resurfaced with the next pavement contract. So it's this year.
Actually, that segment right there is in the picture on the start, you know, where the guy's on the bicycle. It's already been done from Encinitas Boulevard to D Street. And the next segment will be between D and hopefully F Street, which looks just like this.
It's
and
D to G, yes.
This has already been repaved, and the picture that you have of the bicyclist at the front is that stretch of road.
Okay, I'll move on. So you may ask, how do we compare with the other cities? And this chart depicts the different PCIs by agency here within the county of San Diego. So as pictured, the city of Encinitas, which is shown on the green bar, sits above the statewide average PCI of 65. And it is notable that we are within the top quarter agencies here in San Diego County. So we'll talk a little bit about pavement rehabilitation and how we repair streets. So we perform both surface rehabilitation and full depth rehabilitation. Those are the two main types of rehab. And what we see most often is the surface rehabilitation in terms of our maintenance and rehabilitation of our streets. So maintenance you would normally see is the slurry seal operations. Those are usually reserved for streets that are in good condition. And then we also have the rehabilitation restoration types, which would be considered overlay. You hear it most commonly called overlay, but it's really mill and overlay. And this treatment is usually used on streets in the poor or very poor PCI ranges. And then lastly, we have full depth reconstruction of our streets, which would normally be for when streets have completely failed. And that includes not just replacing of the asphalt layer of the road, but the base and the sub-base layers as well. It's very costly, but as a reminder, the city funds and executes the citywide pavement project every year to improve this valuable asset. So CIP projects. It is important to note that street maintenance and rehabilitation also occurs by way of CIP projects, in addition to the annual pavement projects. These CIP projects also influence the city's PCI. And these CIP projects involving resurfacing, such as the Coast Highway 101 Safety and Mobility Project pictured, is an example of one such project. So now let's talk a little bit more about some costs. So pavement management goes by the saying, pay now or pay more later. And this graph demonstrates how it is less costly to maintain a street in good condition than to repair a street in poor condition. And you can see what some recent costs to repair for slurry would be about $3 a square yard, versus once you get into the good or poor condition streets, it goes from 7 to 20 times the cost. And again, these depend on the cost of the asphalt that we're milling and overlaying. we'll talk about our current budget. So this chart references the city's existing budget of approximately $3 million per year. Based on the annual budget, it is expected that the city's overall PCI will decrease to 65 by year 2029. And we can likewise see that the deferred maintenance costs increase each year as well. This pie chart reveals the condition breakdown of streets, again, 10 years in the future, if the city were to maintain the $3 million per year budget. Streets classified as very poor, the red piece, that would increase from less than 1% currently to 11%. And then streets classified as poor would increase from 13 currently to 18.5% in 10 years. The streets in good condition would actually decrease from what we currently have at 30% down to 4%. And then the very good streets would increase from about 59% to 66%. This map depicts the current street network conditions. So the green is referring to the very good streets. Blues are the good, and then the orange or the yellow, orange and red refer to poor and very poor respectively. Again, this is depicting our current PCI, which is an average of 74. This map reveals the same map 10 years later. If the city were to maintain the current annual $3 million funding allocation for pavement projects, we start to see more orange and red appearing, showing the increase of poor and very poor conditions. I just want to clarify on this slide that yellow is actually equivalent to the blue. It's just a different variation of a good street. Again, this would be with our PCI at 65. So in conclusion, the city has a substantial investment in its street network of $428 million. Our network is in very good condition currently with a PCI of 74. With the current budget of $3 million a year, the PCI is estimated to drop to 65 in about 10 years. Our deferred maintenance will grow to almost $106 million. And the percentage of streets considered in poor condition will likely increase to 11% from what it currently stands at under 1%. And lastly, the consultant has identified some new cost-effective pavement technologies that we will be exploring for future implementation on city pavement projects. And that concludes my presentation. Staff is available for questions.
Well, thank you very much for that presentation. I'll just share my perspective that this is a critical city asset. I mean, there's nothing that makes a city seem in decline faster than its pavement quality going down. So I would be a full supporter of us adding more money in the budget and making that an ongoing additional expense if we went from 3 million to 4 million a year. Or some additional so that we would be maintaining or improving our pavement quality index. I do not want us to be decreasing. I think in previous presentations when I've seen this pavement, it's shown historic, where have we gone over the last several years, and it did show that we had been improving each year. So I like to see that, and I would like to see that continue. So, you know, when you have a $428 million asset, you don't want that to go into decline. So I'm hopeful. I know that we are always telling our city manager about all of our priorities depending on what the topic du jour is, and pavement is the topic du jour tonight. But this is truly one of the most important things we continue to fund. And it's at $3 million, you know, we can add a bit more money to that and still manage our budget effectively. So we do get Transnet money. We do have a lot of infrastructure projects that result in new pavement. So it seems to me like we should remain really committed to keeping our pavement quality index high and even maybe overtaking Vista. It seemed like it was Carlsbad, Vista. What was the other city that was above us? Poway. Those are the three cities that were bigger in front of us on that chart. So thank you very much for the presentation. I'm glad we had the chance to talk about it tonight. Council Member Kranz.
Yes, so my recollection is the same as yours, and I know our goal at one point was to try and get our PCI to an 80. And one question that I would have relates to the current PCI information. We hired a consultant to run the cameras again, and I know that that is common to come back with cameras because in the interim between cameras running, we're making repairs to roads and we're assessing the PCI and adjusting as we make repairs. So I was wondering if, as a result of the new camera analysis, whether there was a drop in the PCI as part of that transition from the old camera data to the new camera data. Does that make any sense?
I'm not sure what cameras you're referring to.
Well, they collect this data by putting a camera on a car, don't they? And they drive around and do the assessment?
No, they actually walk the streets. They don't, and they've got notes identifying, like they're looking for cracks. They're looking for types of distress, pavement distress. It's very much by foot. It's not on the road.
Every mile of street in Encinitas?
Yes.
Okay. I recall the roads report from 10 years ago was by car and camera. But it doesn't change the question, which is, were there adjustments made based upon the survey by this consultant to where our condition index was prior to them starting that analysis?
Adjustments based on what?
Their analysis. So we had this done, the city had this done 12 years ago. And all of the road repair work that we've done in the interim 12 years or 10 years or whatever, you know, whenever we started again with the new walking assessment, there were adjustments made to the PCI based upon the maintenance that we did on the streets. So my question relates to whether we considered the index to be correct when we had our new consultant, or did the consultant adjust it down from where it was before they started?
Well, let me help out here, Julie.
Okay.
Let me help out here.
Okay.
So Deputy Mayor Kranz, there's two things that happen when the 5-year period expires between surveys. The one thing that happens is you typically have a different set of eyeballs that are viewing the pavement. So you don't have the ability to calibrate between the surveyor in survey 1 and the surveyor in survey 2. So that answers the first part of your question. It's very difficult to understand what the difference is. Surveyor 1 in year 0 could call a pavement an 82. Surveyor 2, 5 years hence, could call the same look of pavement an 85. So that's always difficult. So you're right. There's no real way to calibrate the two surveys in that regard. But to answer the second part of your question was all of the pavement work that occurred in between the actual reports, was that all put into the software prior to the work being done by Surveyor 2? That answer is yes. So the computer software was updated prior to the start of the second survey. But you do bring up a good point. When a survey is done with lasers and the sound compression equipment, that doesn't have to be calibrated from year 0 to year 5, as long as you use the same radar system. And so that is one thing the city might consider, is to switch from the eyeball methodology to a more scientific based one. But the reason that I can tell that the city has always been using the former is it costs a lot less money.
Yes, and I recognize there is some subjectivity if it's being done by a human, but the main thrust of my question is, were there any readjustments to the number? Like one day we woke up and it was at a 78, and then the next day after the guy was all, or gal, once the work was all done, the consultant said, you know, look, you're at a 78 according to your index. I think, you know, it should be 76 or 75 or, you know, so that's all we're trying to figure out, is whether there were any major adjustments to the number based upon this new analysis by the contractor.
There were no adjustments. In fact, internally, the company was very fastidious about having training done so that all of the various evaluators would have similar grades for similar pavement types. So they did everything possible to calibrate within so that they would standardize that. So the answer is no, there should have been, they did everything they could to eliminate that.
And the graph that showed the line where the condition index deteriorates and lowers, and it talks about the cost of the repairs that are necessary at that point. How do we let Highway 101 get to an 11? And does that mean that structurally we rebuilt that? We tore up the pavement? It's my recollection that we essentially did some dig outs and then put some pavement over it. But tell me what we did there between Encinitas Boulevard and D Street.
No, that's correct. We did do dig outs, and we did also do a thicker mill with a thicker overlay.
So even though it was an 11, we didn't have to get out the grader and take all the asphalt up. We figured that we were still able to recover that street even though it was an 11.
That's correct.
Okay, and we're confident we can do the same thing between D Street and F Street, I hope.
D and G, yes, we will be doing the same.
Okay, desperately needs it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
One other question about that pavement. We now have restaurants that have encroached. We've allowed them to build little patios out into the street. How much of an effect is that going to have on our pavement work?
Well, we're going to try to minimize it as much as possible. We may have to do some night work as an alternative.
But will we ask them to remove their deck that they built, their wooden decks and other pieces of infrastructure, or will we come back and finish that at a later time?
Member Kranz, if I may respond. At this time, because the pavement work along the 101 would have some disruption, we are looking at the options to best understand how we can accomplish this important work, but minimize the impact to those businesses. The amount of work that would be required and the amount of disruption requires a lot, some more thinking, I think, because certainly we want to be supportive of our small businesses that have been severely impacted during this time. So we are looking at that, knowing that this is a high priority for council.
And so will we have this conversation about how much more to plus up the pavement repairs during budget? When do we expect to have that conversation?
Yes, Councilmember Kranz. Our plan is to provide a variety of options for council to consider that would accomplish your goals and objectives. Now that we've heard that you would be interested in modest increases in the pavement option, we want to be able to provide those runs using our software that is in-house. Additionally, we want to take into consideration how continuing CIP projects that would also improve the quality of our streets would have an effect on those proposals. So we want to make sure we have the right information to present to council.
My recollection is we were trying to get to an 80. Is that yours as well, Mayor Blakespear?
Yeah, that is. I also did remember that there was a methodology change that resulted in the number being different, but you know what, there's definitely subjectivity in there. I mean, certainly an 11 in our downtown needs to change, and so we should try not to let that happen again. Councilmember Mosca.
Yeah, so just some brief comments. I agree with everything that's been said so far, and I think I like how we put it in terms of this is an asset, and that this is, you know, the price tag of this asset, because we should treat it as such and make sure that we're maintaining that asset. But more importantly for me is the fact that this is the #1 issue on the minds of most voters. They are saying that the roads are not in good shape, and they also talk about traffic congestion. So in addition to all of that, I think that it's an imperative that we make sure that we're always making progress and that we're not slipping behind. As the report says, staff report says, if we stay at the same level of funding for our streets, that we could find ourselves with about $109 million in deferred maintenance in a very short period of time. That's not acceptable. And I think that what folks will see is that the PCI is going down, and at least I saw more and more red lines and orange lines in my district and throughout the entire city, and that's just not acceptable. The other thing too is I want to point out is that we haven't really kind of looked at some of the external factors that I guess we'll look at during budgeting. But you know, in terms of Mayor Blakespear talked about some of the local county funding that we have, but also state funding that we have through the gas tax, and we see that going down every day. It's going down, and as a state, we're not really getting to the point where we're talking about, you know, how are we going to fund road improvements in the future? You know, if it's not through the gas tax, because, you know, we are, as a state, adopting more electric vehicles or hydrogen vehicles or alternative fuels, and also the CAFE standards are getting higher. You know, what are we going to do about this kind of outmoded, regressive way of taxing people, which is gas tax? The other thing too is that a number of us have talked about the circulation plan, and I want to just point out that there are more roads in our city than depicted within these charts, and that there are roads that are privately maintained roads, and that when we approach the conversation about circulation plan and whether or not some of those roads ought to be taken into the public portfolio, we should look at the fact that the deferred maintenance is climbing even at $3 million. So if we were to take over some additional private roads, that's going to be even larger of a price tag and put us even more into the hole. Although I am interested in, you know, perhaps the staff can come up with a methodology in terms of looking at some of these, you know, private roads throughout our city. I think there are about 250 or so roads in our city that are privately maintained, and some of them are probably at a PCI of 0, or maybe a little bit better than that, but some of them are getting really bad, and so that's something that we have to take a look at. So that's pretty much it. I think that they're critically important, and I don't want to fall behind, and I don't want to go down on the PCI, and I also don't want to saddle our city with a larger deferred maintenance. And there's a lot of external factors that are coming at us that it's going to make it harder to just maintain what we have in terms of the $3 million. And so we got to be thinking about all of this when we approach this budget discussion. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Hensy.
So I know we have some public speakers on this item, so I might have something to say again after hearing from them, but something that always comes to mind is this imperative for complete streets. And I know that every time we repave a street, we have the opportunity to improve it for, you know, bikes and peds and everybody else that wants to use the street alongside motorists. And I hope that we can continue this really positive direction that we've been on the last couple of years, where in the cases where these streets are pretty major, and I'll lift up Requesa as an example, this street was brought forward to our Bike Walk Encinitas group, and they were able to give input and kind of understand and help work through some of the mobility options for Requesa. And the result of that street is really wonderful. And it's really turned a street that didn't have a lot of safe bike lanes into a street where it feels really safe. And so I know that it's our policy that complete streets must be considered at the minimum. But my hope is that we can, you know, really eke out the potential of every street when we are repaving them to increase the size of the bike lane, decrease the size of the travel lanes to the smallest width possible, and also to keep buffers for the bike lanes in mind too. And I know Abe's really good at that, and I just want to make sure that we call that out during this discussion.
That's a great point. I'm glad you did call that out, and I think that we all agree with that. So definitely that's a priority. Do we have public speakers?
Yes, we do. We have one. Elena
Okay.
Thompson.
Okay,
Elena, you can start when you're ready. You have 3 minutes. Elena, you can start. Just need to unmute your microphone, Elena.
Julie, can you quit sharing your screen?
Oh.
Thanks.
Elena, you're on mute. There you go.
Can you hear me?
Now we can.
Okay. Hey, sorry to have to hear from me twice, but this is important. And thank you for the instructive update on PMP and Councilwoman Hensy's wise point just made. I'm in full agreement, and I too will call out the same point. I'd like to recommend the inclusion of a standards chart in this informative annual PMP update and the adoption of standards by the City Council. By PMP standards and policy, I would be referring to number 1, striping standards for vehicular travel lane sizes and widths. The city has 18-foot wide travel lanes that promote and encourage high-speed vehicle travel when a freeway lane is quite a bit narrower than that. Number 2, striping standards in the PMP for bike lane sizes and widths. At the present time, we have no standards. It's willy-nilly. Someone decides, we don't know who, how they stripe those bike lanes. Number 3, striping standards of buffer sizes on bike lanes. For years, I know that Encinitas Bike Walk, the local biking and walking advocacy group, has been urging the city to adopt standards for their PMP process. We've urged the council to get pavement striping right at the very time of the striping and pavement updates. This is critical from a public safety standpoint, since our pavement part of our infrastructure inventory is so costly. At this point in time, without standards in place, roadway improvements are simply a rework of what was versus what can be. Taxpayer and Transnet funds could be better deployed on PMP than they are today. Currently, repairs and striping, while being done the same old way and restriping over old bike lanes and overly wide travel lanes, is not fully capitalizing on the investment, the taxpayer money or Transnet funding in restriping these roads to new and updated mobility standards, where the road allows for that, of course. Case in point would be Garden View and Encinitas, Encinitas Boulevard, oversized travel lanes, skinny bike lanes, all promoting speeding and unsafe mobility. internal communication at the city may be lacking within the various departments, as one of the staff said, eyeballs viewing the pavement, to best update all new striping to enhance standards of function and safety. In sum, our investment policy for PMP needs updating, and I'm glad you're talking about it tonight. So in closing, I would urge this mobility-driven city council to adopt modern-day PMP standards of excellence that meet today's safety and mobility realities. Let's not restripe and repave roads the way it was done back in the late 80s. We can do better with new standards and should. Thank you.
That concludes speakers.
Okay, thank you very much, Elena. And thank you so much to the staff that presented this and put it together, and all the great questions from council. I did have one final question. Do you know the pavement quality index of Birmingham?
It's from which segments?
It's low.
From the I-5 to Highway 101 west.
Yes, it's probably in the 40s, I think.
Oh my gosh, that's being generous.
So it's not as low as that 11 that we saw?
No.
Going west down to Vulcan is just, I mean, there's potholes.
And
it's pretty bad.
I would like to point out that with that question, that we do have on our city website a way to look at the PCI of any street in the city. So it's on the page that says online options, and there's one that says something about pavement condition index. It's a service of our engineering department and our GIS department. It is called Road Condition Map. And
are you looking up Birmingham right this
yeah,
minute?
I'm looking up Birmingham here.
Madam Mayor,
you may want to continue on, but
as Deputy Mayor is looking that up, I'm wondering if our city engineer can speak to some of the points made by the last speaker, just because I think that perhaps there's always progress to be made, but our team is not willy-nilly repaving and restriping the roads, and there are standards, and there are very few streets now that have 18-foot wide lanes, and the city has been for a while having the goal of 10-foot lanes, and with a standardization of our bike lanes. And so I just want to allow our city engineer an opportunity to talk about that.
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Mosca. The comments by the previous speaker were fairly inaccurate. Council in the past 2.5 to 3 years has instituted full standards with NACTO. They've also instituted a firm policy of whenever a street is slurried or paved, it does get analyzed for the travel lanes get narrowed, and the striping is installed for either adding buffers and or increasing the bike lanes. I think what sometimes the public gets confused about is we have an annual restriping project that is required to refresh the striping. And so in those cases where we don't do a slurry or a pavement that results in basically the blackening of the entire surface, those refresh projects are where the paint is put down just over the top. And that's because the water-based traffic paint that came into existence for environmental reasons fades very quickly. And so it only lasts about a year. And if you don't refresh it, then it fades too much and you can't see it. So the council is basically doing everything it possibly can to, as quickly as possible, change all of the striping in Encinitas to be as bicycle and pedestrian friendly as possible, as quickly as possible. But there is always going to be the case where that water-based traffic paint has to get refreshed every year. And that's basically because of the water-based traffic paint. It's just required by the world that we live in. So thanks for that opportunity.
And I'd like to follow up with that. Maybe Mayor Blakespeare, you remember in 2014 when we, from the dais, had quite a discussion with our city engineer. He was the director of engineering and public works, and it was very difficult to get the lane narrowed on La Costa Avenue and put in a pedestrian painted walkway. And Elena Thompson was right there with us advocating for that. And I think since then we have been pretty adamant that any opportunity to restripe with narrower lanes would get done. And I appreciate Ed and his team for the work that they're doing. The Birmingham east of I-5 is in fair condition at a 59 PCI. West of I-5, the stretch between McKinnon and this freeway is at 33 PCI. And then going down the hill, it's at 44 PCI. So anybody that's interested in pavement condition, we got a really nice system available on the city's website. Thanks to Wendy and her team for their efforts on that.
Okay, great. Thank you. And I'll just add in that my assessment of the city is that we have changed dramatically in how we manage our streets. And we, as my council colleagues and Ed Wimmer have just said, that we are restriping, repaving, focusing on biking and walking. And that's really been a singular focus. And we've seen tremendous changes on the streets. So and we also had big discussions about NACTO and following these different guidelines, which we're doing to the extent possible throughout Encinitas. So I'm really happy to see the progress. Of course, we can always be improving things, and we always need to be working toward the standards as they change. I think the standards are headed toward more protected bike lanes, barrier protected, physically protected bike lanes, instead of just paint barriers. And that's something that, our engineering staff is keeping up with, I'm sure, and will be continuing to bring those projects to us and implementing them just as part of their routine maintenance as we move forward. So thank you very much for this presentation, and we'll move on from this item. I think we've talked about it a lot, and I appreciate that we were able to have the time to do that today. That's why we bumped this item from a previous council meeting, was we wanted to make sure we had enough time to talk about it. So with that, if there are any other reports anybody wants to make before we adjourn, their AB 1234 reports or anything else, jump in here. I don't see any hands. So let's go to the city manager report or the city attorney report, if anybody has any.
Madam Mayor, I have no report tonight.
Okay, thank you. City attorney?
Either do I, other than to wish everybody happy holidays.
Thank you. And city clerk report?
Nothing from me other than to wish everybody a happy, healthy holiday.
Okay, good. And I also wish everybody a happy, healthy holiday. And I'm sure my council colleagues wish everybody a happy, healthy holiday. We can all say it if we want to. And
happy holidays, everyone.
Our next meeting is January 13, 2021. So goodbye to 2020, and hopefully 2021 is a better year. Bye.
Bye.